Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the EcomXFactor podcast. In today's episode we have with us Roxana from Masters Who Care. Roxana is an executive and enterprise agile coach who helps entrepreneurs scale their businesses. Roxana has more than 15 years of experience partnering with startup founders, IT and business managers. Roxana helps business leaders adapt and leverage the agile mindset to achieve strategic business results and business agility. This talk covered a lot of practical advice. We talked about how to hire right, how to delegate and prioritize tasks, how to become a better business leader, and much more. I took away a lot of new concepts from this talk and I believe it's highly relevant to any business owner listening. Please enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with Roxana. Hi Roxana, how are you?
Hi, Yaron. Great. Thank you. You?
Awesome. All good. Happy to have you with us. I'm really excited for this call because it's actually something that I've been struggling with, and I really appreciate your advice. So I'm sure it's going to be very interesting. Before we start, are you now in Bali?
Yes, I'm in Bali. As you can see, it's a bit hot here.
What are you guys doing in Bali?
Well, for the time being is our home, and in a way we are forced to be isolated here, so we fully enjoy that aspect.
Nice, awesome, that's cool. So we actually met in Chiang Mai a few months ago. Me and my wife, we met you guys in the condominium, and we've been in touch since then, and I'm happy we have the opportunity to collaborate. So before we start, can you tell us a bit about your business and what you're doing these days?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the founder of Masters Who Care. It's a one-person company. And usually I work with entrepreneurs, startup founders, managers who want to grow their business and they need to improve and scale their operations. So what in practice means is that I help them improve the performance of their current staff, but not necessarily staff in the, let's say, common understanding, people that are hired, but more like a network of collaborators because we are working in the gig economy. And also I help them grow their team and to overcome any cross-cultural challenges that they have.
I see.
And for all this, I use my 15 years experience in working inside remote global teams, but also managerial experience and my MBA and cross-cultural expertise. Because you see, I've been the first employee for a software company, a Finnish company in Romania, and we grew the office to 32 people. So I know a lot about scaling up and about different stages of scaling up and different challenges, because usually it's what worked before doesn't work anymore, and we have to change.
Yeah.
And my main focus is on software development industry, but recently I started collaborating with people from other industries, including solopreneurs and business owners or store owners. And I think the main reason is the fact that IT has the deepest experience when it comes to virtual teams or working with people all over the world in the online environment.
Yeah. I agree. That's cool. So what are the challenges that you often see when you help solopreneurs or startup founders? Because I'm sure there are many challenges, and everybody, whenever they encounter a challenge, they are sure that this is the first time anybody in the whole globe is encountering this challenge. But basically, I guess that the challenges are quite similar. And so I wanted to know, what are the challenges that you often encounter?
Well, you see, quite often my clients are people who are successful. In fact, they manage to have a working business model. They have clients, the company is growing. So in a way you could say they made it. They finally made it. But now the challenges are completely different. They feel overwhelmed by the work, and they start to feel like they are some sort of bottleneck of their own company. It's like they become the person that cannot handle anymore the challenges that they have. And probably you have also encountered in these communities of entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs who hustle a lot, and who are super busy, and this busyness is some sort of badge of honor. But in fact, it is because they have challenges to scaling their operations. And then they understand that they need more people, they need collaborators, they need to start delegating. But how they successfully manage this relationship is a completely different topic. So it's like they have become successful when it comes to clients and so on, but when it comes to having their own network of support, then the challenges start happening.
Yeah, I agree.
And unfortunately, in many cases, this leads, well, first of all, to huge frustration. But then also, as one of my customers said, it becomes some sort of grow or die statement. Meaning they already made investment, they already made commitments. They focus so much on sales, and sales are growing. So they really need to figure a solution to make this whole system work in a way for them. And I think these are the main challenges I see across the board for store owners, for owners of startup who want to deliver software products, but also for solopreneurs. Because in the first stages you do everything by yourself, but then when the business is growing, you realize you need help. And how to get in an effective way this help to turn it in a successful story, that requires different type of skills than those that help you gain the customers.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel that you described exactly the process that me and my wife, we've gone through, because we've been successful, quote unquote. We've managed to get a lot of sales and increase the revenue year over year. But now, even though I hired people, I didn't prioritize or delegate the task correctly. And I feel, as you said, overwhelmed. And I feel that I'm the bottleneck. Like, I have a team of VAs and they are doing all the tasks that I ask them to do, but I don't have enough time to validate them. And if I'm not satisfied with the performance, I'm not sure how to tell them. So I feel that you exactly describe what I'm feeling. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs are also encountering the same feelings. So what are the mistakes that you often see? Obviously, this is a common situation, but what are the most crucial mistakes that people do?
Well, the most common mistake I see is taking very lightly the staffing decision and the time you invest into that. And I think it's connected with the fact that, well, the mindset goes, well, I hire this person, or I made a contract for a few days or a few months. So if it doesn't work, I will just change the person. But unfortunately, I mean, even if it's true, you have this luxury compared with a company who is hiring someone for long term. I think the recruitment decision is one of the most critical decisions to be taken. And you have to invest a lot of time and energy, but not in the common way of hustling or doing many things, but in the leadership type of way, where you reflect a lot and you ask questions and you clarify, first of all, for yourself, what exactly is the area in which you need help. And the second mistake I see, it's pretty common, is that even when you get people on board, time and energy is not allocated to really onboard these people effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And that means even having some sort of practices in place or some tools in place, not inviting someone in. And I don't know if it happened to you. It happened to me many times with startup founders. Well, I want to show you, I have this file, but I don't know where it is. Let me search for it. I cannot find it. I think it's on my old laptop. Oh, but that's so important. I mean, if you read that, you will know everything. And so it's some sort of lack of organization. And then what makes this worse is the fact that people don't learn from the mistakes they made, or they don't allocate time to reflect on what didn't go that well and how you can change it such that next time, for instance, when you bring a new virtual assistant, you do things differently and you increase your chances to make it a success. Because you see, even this trying, okay, I try with this person, then I try with the other person and so on. This means time and energy from you, maybe many opportunities missed. So it's not something you can do forever without having a learning.
Yeah, I saw in your website you have the famous quote by Albert Einstein that insanity, definition of insanity is doing the same mistake over and over and expecting different results. So obviously not organizing and not prioritizing is a common mistake, and you have to reflect and understand what you did wrong in order to progress.
Yes.
And something that we talked about in our call before this podcast, and I really like that you said, you mentioned that most of the time solopreneurs or startup, they avoid putting organizations or too many constraints because this is the thing that they didn't like in their corporate job.
Yes.
And I really love the fact that you mentioned this. So can you elaborate a bit about this?
Yes. So if you ask, well, why don't people put this type of structure, or why they don't get to organize, it goes back to the main motivation of being an entrepreneur, which is you really enjoy this type of informal, friendly, non-bureaucratic way of interacting. And, you know, when you are completely by yourself, it works very well. But more you grow your network, some sort of structure needs to be put in place. And that doesn't mean that, okay, that will erase my entrepreneurial culture or this type of startup culture that it's so popular these days and millennials are really looking for. It only means that you put in place things that are needed and that really help you and the people working with you. And I think when we will elaborate more, you will see how much helpful it's not only for you as a store owner or as an entrepreneur, but also for the people who work with you, especially when we talk about global context, where people come with different national culture background and they have different expectations, and then you really need to level up the transparency of those expectations such that, okay, people understand who makes what decision and which things are expected from me and which things make me successful in this collaboration. Not to have it constantly as a surprise, or sometimes I tell founders, don't put invisible electric fences, meaning there are some things that are completely no when I'm working with someone, but I won't tell them. I just let them discover by themselves and then, oh, gotcha. So
I know this. I've been guilty of doing this as well.
That's not like a business mentality or let's say a way to create long-term partnerships.
Agree. Yeah, so I have so many questions, but let's start with the beginning, is hiring the correct people. So what is the process that you suggest following, and any tips regarding how to hire? Maybe it's a good idea to hire people from the same country or people from different countries, or what is the skill set you're looking for? How are you going to interview? So just share a few.
Yes. Well, I was lucky enough to work with a few recruiters in my career, and also to recruit by myself, but also to support other people recruiting. So to be an observer and then to really see how things are going. And I would say the first most important thing is to clarify for yourself what are your values, or if you want to say your company's values, and to try to recruit a bit based on those. And I think after a few engagements, it becomes clear what you cannot really tolerate. I give an example for me, it's very important to have the emotional maturity to admit when there is a mistake, because it doesn't matter. Once we make it transparent, we work and we fix it. So I take mistakes very easily, but I'm also expecting people to put them forward. And I think it makes also business sense. It's really, I would say, a business value for me, because it's incorporated in this mentality of continuously learning. If you think master is someone who is dedicated to continuously improve. Then once you put this, let's say, values or non-negotiable for you, I think it's very important to analyze the appropriate type of engagement. Now, you know, the common decision is, okay, let's hire someone. But now in the gig economy, there are so many options out there, and there are so many factors that you have to take into consideration. So maybe hiring is not always the best choice, even if I had clients which have decided hiring in few occasions. But if you think about an entrepreneur, a small company who wants to be flexible, or how we say agile, and to adapt very fast to uncertainty and so on, then you need a lot more flexibility with your staff. And maybe this type of contract-based partnership makes a lot more sense. The problem is when you take the decision lightly and then you have to fix it in a way. Like you start a new initiative and you think, well, I would like to do that. I think I would need someone with this profile. And you hire that person, but after 6 months you see that it doesn't work. And then you are in the very tough position to see what you are doing with that person and so on. This is the responsibility you have, if you think as a manager, to create some sort of career path for people who work with you. Then what I have been very successful with my clients doing was analyzing the skills we are looking for, but together with the other collaborators. So I know as an entrepreneur, I do it also. It's so much easier for me to do it by myself, and sometimes I think it's faster. But in fact, when you open the topic to other people, you might discover new solutions. Like some people would like to upgrade themselves, and maybe it makes sense for you to invest into upgrading those skills. Or maybe you discover an alternative, like instead of hiring someone to do something, maybe we can use this tool and we can improve that.
I see.
So it's like the power of coming together, because again, it goes back, it's such an important decision. And it is worth having as much input as you can possibly have, And the side effect is that when you engage people who are already in your network in this process, they will be very welcoming towards the new person.
Makes sense.
Compared,
If you surprise them
with
with someone new on the team.
Yes. Hey guys, starting today, please welcome Roxana, and she will take from you that and that and that.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a good way to go. So far,
Yes.
so far we have the values. We need to clarify the values and what exactly are we looking for, and then we need to consider whether we want to hire or maybe delegate, outsource, hire contractor.
Yes.
Then you suggest talking with the team, asking them if they have any ideas, if they heard about any tools, or if anybody of them is interested in taking this role or task under their own responsibility. And then after you decided, what are the next steps?
Well, it's very important to create some criteria for if you decide to bring someone on board. And sorry to say, but those criteria are more sophisticated than just the cost. So most entrepreneurs, they jump easily to the cheapest possible solution. And they are surprised that, hey, we don't have any time zone overlap. Or, hey, I'm really bothered about their internet connection. It doesn't work for me. So it's worth thinking a bit based also on your current collaborations. What are the criteria? If you want a lot of time overlap, because maybe you want to work closely with that person. In some cases, you are not interested. For instance, I hired someone to do my tax return. And for me, it was important to do it in the country, to be someone from the country where I was submitting the reporting. So thinking a bit about the criteria beyond only simply the cost. And then if I can give another 3 short tips and we can conclude it here, I would say define a clear trial case. You know, in companies all over the world, there is a trial period. And I think it is worth really taking advantage of this. Maybe you want to have calls with the person. You want to see if they are able to express themselves in English. You want to see if they are able to estimate the time it takes for them to do something. So different things that you can test during this trial period, which means you have to put a bit of time and effort in the beginning. And then once you have them in the team, you really have to onboard them. And I know onboarding sounds like an HR bureaucratic stuff, but in fact, you really have to introduce that person with a few things, at least present them the tools or let's say the status of your progress and so on. And if it's needed, give them a very short training on what they need to work with if you want them to work with a different tool.
I agree. For us, what we do is for any new tool that we start working with, I make sure that I also watch a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of tutorials, and I also send my team the tutorials, because the tools, if you know how to use the tools, it's going to leverage your work and it's going to make you much more efficient and much more effective. And one thing I wanted to add to your trial period, for me, I also make it a point to tell the employee or the person that I hired that this is also a trial period for them. It's also an opportunity for them to see how is the collaboration with me, with the team, if the work is interesting for them. I find it very important not to give people tasks that they don't enjoy, because if they don't enjoy the task, they'll probably quit or won't do a good job. So this is also a trial period for the employee. You have to create a win-win situation. Everybody has to be happy, otherwise nobody's going to be happy.
Yes, I couldn't agree more, because you see in this type of collaboration, you need to have a lot of intrinsic motivation from people. The days where there is a manager in the office who checks you every hour are gone.
Yeah, I agree.
So then you need to have people who work on things that they enjoy. And when we discuss further about the other topics about planning and so on, who can also give you feedback, you know, about how you are as a leader, or let's say maybe in the beginning taking it to a smaller level, how you expressed what you want, or was it clear enough, or how could it be better? There are different things such that in fact you grow together with these people, and it's like a common learning experience.
I agree. So I totally agree with what all the topics that you discussed, and regarding the importance of onboarding people and recruiting the correct people. But if you would ask me like a year or 2 years ago, I might have taken your advice lightly, and I might have ignored it. So what are the biggest nightmares that you saw, or the worst case scenarios that you can imagine when people hire not correctly, or they don't do the onboarding correctly? Because I want to scare people to let them know exactly what to expect when they are not doing this correctly, and why is it so important.
There are many bad things that can happen. And let's say one of the things, starting with the values, trust is very important. If you want to bring someone in your team, you have to make sure that they are also living by the same values. They are not bullying people around, or you end up in the situation where you start to ask yourself about the security of your operations, or how you can fix after them. There are many things, and in a way starting small is a blessing, because you have the time to experiment and the risk is not that big. But when you get to the point where you have a team and you want to have them autonomous, and you give them a lot of freedom and so on, you want to make sure that they are aligned with what you want and where you want to take this company. And to constantly have a dialogue with them, constantly also they give you feedback and so on. So it can go really bad. My experience was with a software developer who deleted the entire software repository.
Wow.
And if you think about it, it had also to do with the structure of the company, because normally it shouldn't be possible that someone has the rights to delete everything. So again, it goes back with how well did you prepare before welcoming these people to work together with you.
Yeah, it's all about the planning. It's all about the planning and setting things up front and being a bit more professional and a bit more organized.
Yes.
So when we talk about different systems, so I know there are a lot of different systems and project management tools and frameworks. What is the best framework that you suggest working with?
Well, the best is, let's say, a big word. But my guidance is to start small and to start with the guide of Scrum. Scrum is a framework that has been already used very successfully in the IT industry. And it also helps with many aspects. It helps with the cross-cultural management, even if that's not something that a lot of people talk about. But it brings like everyone on the same international recognized framework. and people accept it quite easily compared with, let's say, I'm Romanian and I have my very Romanian framework that I would like everyone from Asia to take into consideration. Mm-hmm. And also, if you look about the guide, you will also start to see some practices, mm-hmm. some clarification of roles that I see are very important when it comes to solopreneurs, mm-hmm. Because it gives them insight about where do I want to take my role in this company, mm-hmm. how do I want to evolve in this company, and so on. And then other aspects like how to prioritize, how to work in a remote environment and such. Mm-hmm. Now, when you are at the beginning, if you look at Scrum, let's say you are a store owner and mm-hmm. you want to work with one virtual assistant, you might feel a bit overwhelmed by the framework. Mm-hmm. So my advice is to take it step by step. Mm-hmm. But then when you are at such level where you are really building teams and you want to put a lot of effort into creating like a super high performant team, then I have to say that everything in Scrum is connected with each other. Mm-hmm. So if you really want to go there, you need a different strategy than cherry picking. Mm-hmm. I like that, I like that, yeah. I don't like that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, in the beginning, I think it's a good learning mm-hmm. to check it out. For instance, if you look at the Scrum guide, which is for free, mm-hmm. it has already some values. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying you, Yaron, starting tomorrow, you mm-hmm. need to adhere to these values. Uh-huh. But what I noticed is that only by talking about them, mm-hmm. you start to realize or become aware of your own values. And then you say, well, you know something, for me, let's say I appreciate freedom, and someone who needs like a constant checking will not work because I'm not going into that direction. We are incompatible in our style of leadership. Mm-hmm.
I think I want to take, can we take just 1 second, one step backwards and explain yes. what is exactly Scrum and what is the difference between, for example, Scrum and Waterfall and Lean management, like different, like give us a short explanation about what is Scrum, because some of the people in the audience don't even know what is Scrum.
Well, I think it's very good if someone would simply Google it and uh-huh. read shortly. Mm-hmm. It's a framework that is used mostly nowadays in the software development industry. Mm-hmm. I would say it has its roots in Lean, but mm-hmm. then this is a topic that we could have an entire session yeah. Mm-hmm. about this. Mm-hmm. And why I proposed Scrum compared to a traditional project management, let's say PMP type of approach and so on, is that I feel Scrum and Agile is more appropriate for this type of entrepreneurial environment mm-hmm. Where there is a lot of uncertainty. Mm-hmm. So you can adapt very quickly. Mm-hmm. And it gives you this freedom and this flexibility. Mm-hmm. Now, if you bring a project manager on board, and I don't know, you ask them about helping you with the team and so on, I think you will see a lot of formalities around mm-hmm. project management. Mm-hmm. And then we go back to this, oh, I don't know if I really want to go into that direction. Mm-hmm. Now, when I work with clients, the feedback that they give to me is that they like about Scrum the fact that when you look at the leadership model, you will see that in Scrum, we have leaders in the development teams, but we have also two leaders, the Scrum Master and the Product Owner.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel the Product Owner is very much an entrepreneurial type of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's very easy, let's say, for someone who is a solopreneur or for someone who wants to grow their business to bring a Scrum Master on board
Mm-hmm.
who will help organize in a way the team, but
Mm-hmm.
also giving them together the opportunity to brainstorm and to take the direction they want.
Mm-hmm.
Without having this conflict. Well, if you are the project manager, then who am I as the owner of the business?
I see. Interesting. So how does, let's say we adapted to Scrum, so how is our day-to-day is going to look like? Do we have daily meetings? Do we have weekly meetings? I know there's something called a sprint, so can you explain a bit about the sprint and how we're going to set requirements and prioritize the tasks? So give us like a bit more tactical overview of Scrum and how does it look like on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I don't want to go into fully presenting Scrum because there is the Scrum guide. I want to connect it more with the practical benefits that you will get.
Awesome.
because otherwise it seems like, it's all like this fancy framework, but how does it help me?
Cool.
And first of all, how does it help you as, for instance, a store owner who has some virtual assistants? Well, it gives you a lot of guidance through the product owner role. And maybe people don't really realize how critical are the requirements. So when we talk about high-performing team or system and so on, you always have to have very clearly defined requirements. And it's like some people ask me, well, is that so important that in software teams you have a role for it?
Yeah.
And my answer is yes, it's that important that you have a role for someone who constantly thinks about how to get to maximize the value they get from the people they have in the team. And I feel this is exactly what you do as an entrepreneur. You have to think well about the investment you are making and is it profitable for you? What's the return of investment on that?
I agree. So setting KPIs or setting goals.
Yes. So if you check afterwards, all the documentation that is freely available on the internet about the Scrum Master role, you will see that, for instance, you organize the work such that you have sprints. Let's say you decide you want to have 1 week sprint. I will not go further into how you decide the length of the sprint because we are diverging too much. But I think it works very nicely. For instance, as a solopreneur, I work in 1 week sprint. And for me, always the sprint starts with the planning. The planning is where I bring people on at the table and we discuss my vision for next week, what I expect from them. And then the great advantage is that once you do that and you do it very well, normally there will be fewer interruptions from them. And also you can focus on different topics like thinking deeply, on strategic decisions, on the direction, on the vision and so on. And then after a week, bringing everyone at the table again and looking at the results. So it's very compatible with this type of contract-based work where we focus a lot on results only work environment. Meaning I'm not interested in what your dressing code is. I'm not really interested if you start at 9 or you start at 10.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested in the results that you bring me. And then you have, let's say, a systematic way to look into that.
I agree. Sorry,
yes.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Now, when it comes to these requirements, again, you find a lot of guidance on how to improve them. And we can go further in this topic. But if you have a question, please jump in.
I wanted to say that it makes a lot of sense to, like you said, plan the sprint correctly, because what I feel that if you don't plan the sprint and you don't set the requirements well enough beforehand, as you said, there are going to be a lot of interruptions, and then you start to multitask, and you have a Skype chat open and a Slack chat open, and someone asks you a question, and you don't get anything done because you get out of the context of your own real work. So this is the main idea that you suggested of planning carefully, really carefully, the things up front, and then just starting the sprint and reporting after 1 week. So it's going to be much more efficient. So I don't do it well enough, but I see why it's so important.
And you see, it's a practice. I mean, it starts from you as a leader. And I'm a big fan of this self-leadership, self-management, and so on. If you are completely unorganized, that's the culture you will drive. So you have to start with yourself. The same way there are so many cases about managers who are always late for meetings. And you will see they will drive a culture where everyone is late for a meeting. So more you work on yourself and more you see the benefits of doing such, then you have even more motivation to continue and do it more. And then it goes back to this mindset. Do you appreciate feeling like busy all the time? Or do you appreciate to have a system in place and to build the foundation for scaling up such that everything goes smoothly and you can still enjoy a cup of coffee or go to events without being worried that everyone is blocked by you?
And I kind of feel that you and we agree about the fact that hustling is not as important and as many people consider it to be, because for me, and I know you guys, it's for you as well, it's very important to have the work-life balance. Even though we enjoy our work, I don't think that I should work 12 hours a day and don't have friends or go to the gym. So I kind of feel that we are both don't like the hustling aspect of entrepreneurship, and we don't value it so much. And I think that if you don't have to work harder, you have to work smarter. And this is what you're suggesting. Instead of working harder and grinding, you can just prioritize and delegate and use your mind.
And you see, it's also a shift, a mindset shift, because in the beginning, you do everything by yourself and you are so focused on doing. At least, I don't know, me, I have to-do lists, things I want to do.
Cool.
But because of this, really reflecting on and thinking and building a system gets, let's say, second priority. And when you don't do that for a long time, you get into this state where you are completely overwhelmed. And well, one of the most common root causes of small companies failing is their incapability to scale up. And that usually comes back to the leaders, because the responsibility stays with you.
Yeah.
And you are the only one who can make the change and have a different approach.
And you mentioned prioritizing. So obviously I think prioritizing is so important, and it's something that I struggle with every day, and I think a lot of people struggle with. So any tips or like frameworks that you use in order to prioritize the tasks?
Well, there are many frameworks that you can use, and it goes deeper into this business type of leadership. At the end of the day, it's really taking the time to consider the value that it brings, as opposed to thinking what to give to people to keep them busy. And that's a huge difference, especially if you have some background in companies or let's say as a manager. When you have a set of skills, you constantly think, okay, what can I give to that person to work on? But now in the gig economy, I mean, you really don't have to do that, because you decide for how long you partner with everyone. So then you have to really think what would bring the most impact during this week or 2 weeks and so on, and then align everyone on those things and make them transparent. And in fact, what's super important here is that you also communicate with people what are you trying to achieve. Because one way or the other, your collaborators will make like small decisions when they are doing tasks. And it's super important for them to understand what is your final goal.
I agree. Good point. Interesting.
And maybe I can give you a short example by sharing my screen.
Sure. Should be cool.
So if you read a bit about Scrum, you will see that one of the main artifacts there is the backlog. And the backlog is our common point where we all come together regardless our specialty. And here, for instance, I have created like a simple backlog. There is no excuse for not having it. It's done in Google Docs. Okay, so let's say you are an entrepreneur, you don't have now time to investigate tools for creating a backlog. You don't have time to, I don't know, create sophisticated boards and so on. I get that. I get that. But you can still put it in a spreadsheet. And few of the things I have here, making clear the priority, and hopefully in a descendant or let's say organized way. Meaning if I give to Mark to work on this, but for some reason he's blocked, for some reason he needs something, then it's very easy for him to see, okay, what's coming next, and I can start working on that. And then you can see here I have what's called an acceptance criteria. It goes back to the leader role of defining the requirements. So put here what exactly you want. Don't let people make assumptions. And if you are dealing with international team members, it's even better if you ask them to write this. So this is what I want. Let me know what you think about this. And you have clear assigned people to take topics further. Usually they stay in this confusion area. I don't really know if I can start on that or you are still working on that. Let me know. And for instance, a way to make it visible that someone is blocked. I'm waiting
Mm.
and you are keeping me blocked. I cannot deliver this.
Mm-hmm.
So this is even before, let's say, going to more sophisticated tools, because you asked about tools, for instance, having this type of boards. And if you are even more interested and you have truly a team and you want to invest in growing that team, my recommendation would be really have some hours from a Scrum Master and let them help you with building this type of boards. Because, for instance, if I take Jira, which is super popular and it's super cheap, from the beginning they ask you some questions. Do you want Kanban or do you want Scrum? And guess what? You need to read about that.
Yeah. I understand. Can you show us Jira for a second? Or never mind. No, it's okay. Never mind. Something that you've mentioned, and I wanted to ask. So you said that we should prioritize tasks that have big impact. But I'm struggling with. I have the tasks that I know are going to produce impact, but I also have distractions, things I want to test that pop into my mind that I think can really move the needle, like opportunities. So
yes.
And then I finish the week and I see that most of the time I spent wasting time on opportunities that didn't really work. Because I thought this is going to be the big next thing and I have to test this and put everything set aside. So how do you suggest coping with this?
Well, I wouldn't call it wasted time, but of course you have to allocate a certain amount of time. So in software development, for instance, because probably you are testing things, but not to the point where you are truly developing something. So a good practice is to time box. I want to try this out. I have this hypothesis I want to test, and I will give it 4 hours and stick with it. Do the best you can do with those 4 hours. And even more importantly, connect that with a decision. If it works or not, but afterwards you don't take any decision, there is no follow-up, then it's not really a well-invested time.
So how do you make sure that you learn from mistakes and you do like people or hold yourself accountable to your actions and learn from mistakes? Any framework tips regarding this?
So if you check Scrum, it gives you from the start a nice guidance with retrospectives. If once per week you take the time to ask yourself, start with 3 basic questions. What did go well? What didn't go that well? And what are we going to do about it?
Cool.
And me, I do it even personally for myself, where I look at how I invested my time or how I did different things. But when you are doing it together with your team, it's a lot more powerful because they give you also feedback. Like, for instance, I was blocked and there was nothing to follow up. Like, I had nothing to do for, 2 days or 3 days. And that's a big problem. How can we prevent that this will never happen before? So you see, there are some small things that already, if you introduce them, if they don't take a lot of time, they can make quite a difference.
So this I really like these 3 questions. I'm going to try to memorize these. What other quick wins do you suggest? Let's say people listen to this podcast and they are not quite convinced because they are sure that they are really small and they don't need this quite yet. They find this subject very interesting, but they don't have money to invest in a Scrum Master. And they think, no, I'm fine at the moment. But what do you suggest that everybody do, even if they are only solopreneurs or have only one VA, like the easiest and quickest wins?
So first I would say dedicate some time to improve. If you don't do that, no one will do it for your company. Never.
Uh-huh.
So take some time, ask simple questions. I said 3 questions. Okay, start with 1. What I want to improve next week. You mentioned, for instance, I invested a lot of time in these initiatives. Okay, I'm still going to do that, but I will time box and I will keep it. So that already makes a difference. And when you look back over a year, I had teams who had more than 200 improvements. Can you imagine where that team got? So think about yourself. And if you are doing it, the people who work with you will do it also. Second, these requirements, make sure people understand you. If you constantly blame others, they don't get it, then you will be in that loop forever. And empower yourself to get out of the loop. I will improve myself such that it's impossible not to have a clear understanding what I want. So these are already 2 wins. And the crucial fact is when you bring people on board, allocate some time for it and reflect a bit on it, because it's crucial. You will not be successful only by yourself. You need to have like a successful team going together in the same direction.
I totally agree.
Yes, I think that would be the easy wins.
Yeah, there are major wins, and I totally agree with the fact that, and as you said, you mentioned before that a master is someone who is constantly improving. So I think that just laying the foundation of constant improvement and constantly thinking how you can improve and taking responsibility of your own business and your own life is going to set you up for success. So I think the tips that you gave are amazing. They are like gold, and I totally agree. Where can people, what would you suggest are good resources for people to read more about stuff that you mentioned, or any books that you've read lately that really made a big difference, a mindset shift, or really gave you a lot of knowledge that you think that people can enjoy?
Well, I think a nice start is the Scrum Guide. Just go there and read it and try to reflect what would be the benefit. And from all those things, it's impossible not to find at least one thing that you think it's useful for you today, not when you will have the big team of, 100 people and so on. And then if you are interested, go deeper and deeper into the product owner role. I understand you are an entrepreneur, but it gives you a bit of structure. Now, in companies, usually people look at the product owner role to give them a little bit more entrepreneurial spirit and, this type of business oriented.
Yeah.
You take it from a different perspective. In a way, you understand what people expect from you. And you have to show up like that. And if I would have to mention like one book, it's exactly the book that I'm reading now. It's called Company of One.
Company of One.
And yes, it's a mind-blowing book, I would say.
Cool.
Because it challenges many assumptions we have. Like, for instance, being successful is when you have, 100 employees or 1,000 employees. And I think it's also very current, because we see these successful companies who are letting people go after 1 month or such. It contradicts with what we usually think of being successful. So it's a great book, I would say, for solopreneurs, for business owners, for store owners, but also for people who are working in teams that want to remain like agile as a company of one.
Agree. Yeah, and I think the topics that we discussed are also relevant for employees. If people will take for example, the free golden suggestion that you gave a few minutes ago, even if they are employees, they are going to promote themselves in the company ladder and in the hierarchy.
Yes.
And I think all the frameworks are also relevant for employees. It's not only for entrepreneurs. And basically, entrepreneurs, it doesn't matter if you're an employee or have your own business. You can still be an entrepreneur. And this is something that I think that is worth emphasizing. Amazing. So where can people find more about you and your business and connect with you and maybe use your services in order to set up a foundation for a better business?
So my website is masterswhocare.com. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty much with this brand on all platforms, but where I'm the most active is on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And people also can connect with me personally. I really enjoy extending my network, and I also write blogs and put out a lot of content.
Cool.
That I think it's useful.
Nice, awesome. So I'm going to share the links afterwards in the show notes, so people will find it easy to find you. Thanks a lot, Roxana. It was really interesting and a lot of takeaways for me. I need to review this podcast, and then I'm going to take a few action items. But definitely a lot of golden nuggets, and I'm sure that the audience is going to benefit a lot from this episode.
Thank you also, Yaron. It's great that you are taking the time and putting the effort to organize this, and I really appreciate that. And it's also inspiring for me. So thank you. And let's keep in touch.
For sure. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cool. Nice. How was it?